Good morning, Illini. Welcome back to Healthy Illini Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schrock. Thanks for being here with us. And today's episode I'm excited about because we've been trying for a while to get schedules coordinated that we'd have an opportunity to talk about some of our cultural houses here on campus. And today we're talking about one that's a hidden but not totally hidden gem on campus. Many have a passing knowledge about Japan House, and we'll get into that as we get into the episode. But I'm really excited to talk about what Japan House is and what resources are there and they offer. And I want to introduce our guest today. Today I'm joined by Diana Lau. She is an education and engagement specialist with Japan House. Diana, thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Happy to be here and happy to talk about what we offer to students and the community at large.
So if I mention Japan House on our campus, most people immediately think of the gardens. And that's well deserved because the gardens are fantastic. But it's not just that; there's so much more to it as well. So, but before we get into some of that programming and the things that you offer through Japan House, I do want to give you an opportunity just to kind of share and give just like a baseline of what is Japan House here at the University of Illinois.
Yeah, so Japan House, we are not a cultural center, so we're a little bit different from places like the Asian American Cultural Center, La Casa. That's because it's not like the university said, oh, we love Japanese people so much they get their own house, but we're actually a unit within the College of Fine and Applied Arts, and as a teaching facility, what we do is that we teach traditional Japanese arts and culture. We try to make it very accessible to everyone from all ages, from all backgrounds, from all walks of life, and so primarily during the week, we teach a lot of university level classes for our students, but then in the community, we also do a lot of outreach. We host a lot of field trips. And then in the evenings and weekends, we also have public tea ceremonies, workshops with visiting artists. And we like to just be as active as we can in our community because people love Japanese culture or they're always curious to learn more. And we try to bring in different artists and different facets so that people can be more sensitive to other cultures and use that as a jumping point to really reflect on their belonging and their identity in a community.
And Japan House has a long history on campus, actually. As I was doing the prep and looking into it, it's been here quite a while. And so if you can speak to just briefly on kind of the history of kind of how it started and kind of how it came to where it is now.
Yeah, so in the 60s, the university didn't really have many classes or professors who taught specifically non-Western, in particular Asian culture. And so, this is around the time of the Vietnam War, post-World War II. There's a lot of anti-Japanese sentiment, but a dance professor named Margaret Erlanger, she happened to be a Fulbright scholar, and she was working and studying theater arts and performing arts in Japan. And so she met who is now our founder, Professor Shozo Sato, and she was very charmed by him. He specifically, as a student in Japan, he was actually very curious about learning Western literature and Western arts, and so because of that, he spoke very fluent English, and she actually invited him to be an artist in residence at the Krannert Center for Performing Arts because his specialty was teaching kabuki theater, but he also taught flower arranging, tea ceremony, calligraphy, blacking painting, and so all of these art forms, he had this treasure trove of knowledge. He's a real Renaissance man, and he brought that to the university. When his year residency was up, students actually petitioned to make him a full professor, and he was so moved by how welcoming the community was that he said, instead of going back to Japan, I think to make the arts accessible, to really teach people who don't have the resources, especially back then, there wasn't really study abroad. You didn't meet many international students in general at the U of I, unlike today. He said that, I will stay here, and he started the concept of Japan House to be a facility and a space. There's a really funny story, but it's really long, about how he started that first building on campus. In the 90s, it actually got torn down, and so it used to be if anyone knows where the Alice Campbell Alumni Center is, it's kind of like that parking lot between that and Spurlock on Lincoln in California. But that's where the first Japan House was. His successor, Professor Kimiko Gunji, she actually said, I want to save the Japan House because it was so valued by, 30 years of teaching, and so many students and community members liked it so much and studied and learned the arts here that she worked and she asked the university administration, what can I do to keep Japan House going? And they told her, if you raise your own funds, you can essentially just have your own building on this campus and become part of the U of I. So she with the help of many students and alumni, the Japanese government, Japanese businesses, the Rotary Club, for example, and then the support of traditional art schools like the Urasenke Tea School in Japan, she had all of these connections, and she raised $2.5 million. And the building that we have here on campus today was built in 1998. So we're about 25 years old now. I think just a little bit older than most students and some grad students. But the idea was that it's a unique building. It's on its own. It's not a lecture hall. And inside, there are tea rooms. And it was specifically built with teaching traditional Japanese arts in mind.
That's a fascinating story, honestly. That's just, it's one of those things that I love about our campus, because you have these little nuggets of just really interesting things and uniqueness that if you come and focus on academics, which is nothing wrong with that, but you might miss out on these things. So I really love the opportunity to highlight that in our program here and to kind of bring that to the forefront. And I get to learn about it too, which is a bonus for me. You've talked about the history of it and kind of the baseline as far as a physical building and how it started. But one other thing you put in your prep work that I really wanted to have an opportunity for you to share on was kind of the spirit of Japan House. And you mentioned something, I may pronounce it badly, I don't know, Kokoro.
Yeah.
And so if you would just share, it's Kokoro.
Yes.
What is Kokoro and how does that impact Japan House?
So both their teaching philosophies and like even today, all of our instructors and who we work with, they've always felt that teaching and learning about another culture, especially, you shouldn't just do it through like YouTube videos or, watching pictures, taking an exam, saying, oh, I got an A, so I have to be an expert on Japanese arts and culture. But we rather say that it's about the hands-on experience. It's about being immersed. And really, in Japanese traditional arts, they say that when you teach an art, it has to be from teacher to student, and it has to be from kokoro to kokoro. And so kokoro is translated as heart, mind, and spirit. It's Professor Gunji's favorite word. She hopes to one day get it in the English dictionary so people will know more about it. But she's always said that if you don't have that sincerity and you're not interested or you don't have that intent to learn or to participate in another culture, then there's no point in even showing up because you're not all there. And so she asks of students, you don't have to know Japanese, you don't have to be Japanese, but as long as you come with an open heart, then she says that anyone can learn these traditional art forms and anyone can participate in another culture because they're coming from a space of kindness and a space of willingness to be able to learn.
And that really is the underlying current of everything that I've read and I'm learning about Japan House, is that it's not just about coming in and learning about facts or learning about, seeing pictures and things like that, which is all has a part, but it's about that interactive.
Yeah.
So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the interactive things that you do at Japan House. And we're going to start with the one that's probably the most well-known in the area, is simply the gardens. If I mention somebody, Japan House, oh yeah, the gardens, but for somebody who may not know, or for those who have experienced the gardens, maybe not know a little bit more of the in-depth behind them, would you share a bit about the gardens that can be found on campus, where they're at, and kind of what they signify and what the interaction that Japan House is trying to help facilitate through them?
Absolutely. So we're actually located within the University of Illinois Arboretum. And so when you go down Lincoln Avenue and if you're taking the bus, it's across the street from Vet Med. But a lot of people actually say that they get lost or like their Uber can't find it. And it's the idea that it's intentional. Our gardens are kind of tucked away. And when you're on Lincoln Avenue, it's actually hidden by trees. It's hidden by a big hill. And the idea is that in Japanese aesthetics, you're never supposed to, nothing's from point A to point B like in a straight line, but it's about that sense of discovery. It's about that sense of being hidden and finding something and coming across it. And then you get more sensitivity. You're paying more attention to your surroundings. You're more alert, and you feel that connection to nature and the design that was put in place for you to even find it. And so our gardeners and our architecture, it's very carefully sculpted. A lot of people say, it just feels so natural. It just feels like, I belong here. And the idea is that, you don't really see other people, and our sidewalks are not necessarily straight, but they actually wind. We have small garden features, small seating areas, and the idea is that you don't bring in 100 people, and it's not like a field day here, but it's just 1 or 2 people, little clusters here and there, and everyone's kind of like keeping quiet and just walking through and taking a stroll. You're not jogging through, because if you ran through it, then you don't really appreciate the little facets of the gardens. Japanese gardens are all about teaching aesthetics through seasonality. So we always tell students, a lot of people say, I love it in the spring because of the cherry blossoms, but come back in the fall, there's no cherry blossoms, but the maple leaves turn a beautiful red color. If you come in the summer, we have lots of beautiful peonies and irises growing. If you come in the winter, some of the features, like our stone lanterns, they're designed to be covered in snow, and it creates a very beautiful silhouette that you wouldn't know if you weren't here.
And you mentioned, coming through quietly. That's something you actually ask visitors to do, is to enjoy them in a quiet, respectful manner, in order to facilitate, tranquility and reflection for anyone else who may be there. That's something that you is very important to the way that the gardens are designed.
Yeah, so there are other gardens within the Arboretum that are more like touch and play and for exploration and running around. But we try to tell our visitors, like on our garden etiquette website, we actually indicate that it's really a place of reflection. Sometimes people come here because, something sad happened or something very upsetting, and they say that to me, they tell me that, oh, when I come to the gardens, I can feel at peace or at rest. And so we try to say that, we want to be courteous of those around you, and then also of our wildlife. Lots of animals find residence in our gardens, and so we just want to make sure that like the birds and whatnot aren't disturbed by loud noises.
Yeah. If you have not visited the gardens, highly recommend it. And like you said, in different seasons, I'll admit I'm guilty of the spring cherry blossom fascination. I'm part of that too. But I drive by that area, and I stop there sometimes on my lunch and such things. And I've seen in the fall the leaves you're talking about. It's fantastic. So the gardens are certainly a highlight of our campus, not just of Japan House, but of campus in general. And it's something that's really absolutely worth the time to go check out. But there's more to Japan House than just the gardens as well. And you talked about that experience and that teacher and student kind of idea. You have a lot of courses and programming that can teach various things or have different aspects of the culture and of the philosophy and things like that. So would you share a little bit, just a few, I know we don't have enough time to go through everything, but a few of the courses that can be found through Japan House?
Yeah. So for students who are looking at the course catalog, all of our classes are held under Art J in the course catalog. And so we have many popular classes like Chado, the Way of Tea, which is covering about the history and philosophy of tea ceremony. A lot of students say that it's so nice that one day a week of their school semester, they just come here, they learn about tea ceremony, they learn about those principles and really how they're applied to our space and the gardens as well. And then they get to enjoy tea and sweets because we are trying to immerse them in that culture. But we also have things like Japanese flower arranging classes, and then we have online classes as well for people who may not feel comfortable coming all the way out here and they just want to continue learning at home. But we have lots of options. And then again, in the weekends and in the evenings, we have our public tea ceremonies that are open to everyone. And then registration can be found online on our website as well. But also, we always have changing artists, changing events. And so this fall, I will say for anyone listening, we just published a new cookbook about Japanese traditional sweets. And so we'll be doing sweets tastings events this fall. And so that's going to be our theme of the semester.
You mentioned the tea ceremony, and I want to give it a chance for you to really highlight that one. I want to talk about this, a lot of things you did, but I want to make sure we had time to talk about that Japanese tea ceremony, because the way you described it in the prep work, you really said it was basically a core mission of Japan House. Would you share what that means and kind of just a little bit of what goes on in that ceremony as best you can?
Yeah. So Chado, the Way of Tea, is synonymous with Japanese tea ceremony, and it's called the Way of Tea because they say it's a way of life or a way of living. And so this is a very revered art form in Japan, and it really embodies a lot of arts, a lot of cultural practices, a lot of etiquette. And so I know a lot of people will say, oh, I know Japan because of pop culture like anime and manga. But really, if you wanted to understand Japanese culture starting from the ground up, go to a tea ceremony. There's no talking, and you're participating, but every step of the way, what we do is that we teach our guests, this is the etiquette, this is why we do the things that we do in a tea ceremony, and then we serve you a bowl of tea and a traditional Japanese sweets, and you're actively participating in that cultural art. And we hope that people find a sense of tranquility and learn learn a lot about Japanese culture from that as well. A lot of people give us good feedback about tea ceremony, and we have some people that I always say, like, oh, I see you again, all this after like 5 years, like you come like once a semester or twice a semester. And they just say that like it's so quiet because there's no talking. You just really hear the sounds of nature. You hear the sound of the water being poured, and it's designed. We say to people that it's really, it's, if you think about what it really is, it's making and serving a bowl of tea, but it's so deliberate and so intentional that suddenly an hour has passed by, and a lot of people in their busy day-to-day lives, they're on their phones, they're listening to a podcast, they're listening to music, they're running around trying to like brush their teeth, get to class, have lunch, all of that is very stressful. And then just you come to a tea ceremony and we say, don't have your phones out, just sit quietly and just pay attention to the tea ceremony and have tea. And they just say, I feel like my mind is cleared up. And from there, we're just happy that they got to experience that, and it makes people happy. And then hopefully, they have a clear mind and they can approach the rest of their day and the world around them with a happier mood.
And when you were sharing in the prep about the tea ceremony, you mentioned 4 principles.
Yes.
Would you just kind of mention those? You don't have to go deep into them, but just share what those 4 principles are. That I think that really underscores what you're saying about what the purpose of the tea ceremony is.
Yes, the 4 principles of tea are harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. So even though a lot of our audience is university students or adults in the community, we have students as young as first graders come, and we just ask them, like you had this tea ceremony, how would you describe harmony? How would you describe, respect? And all of these students have so much to say, and we didn't even talk to them during the entire hour. And suddenly they're like, oh, I learned this and I noticed that. And so we say that anyone can participate.
So, as you said, there's the tea ceremony you can sign up for. There's classes for your students. There's also events. And you mentioned you have a website. Would you share a little about what that website is, how to find it?
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening, they're like, I want to try this out. How do they get in contact with you?
They can go to our website at japanhouse.illinois.edu. And then from there, right on the homepage, it says like visit the gardens or like join an event. And you just click those links. And for events for the public, that goes to Eventbrite. And that's how we sell tickets. But then for just walking the gardens are always free and open to the public from dawn to dusk. The only exception is in the winter, we close off the tea garden because the path is rocky and slippery. And so that's just a safety thing. But otherwise, the dry rock garden is always beautiful, always open year round. And even in the winter, when people see the snow falls in line with how we rake the rocks, it's a very beautiful thing to see. And so we hope that people will just come out and visit.
You mentioned something that made me think, I forgot to ask this during the tea ceremony. Where does that take place?
The tea ceremony takes place inside Japan House, and so we're not really open to the public because we're typically having lots of classes and events, and so it's kind of weird if someone just walked right in and it was like, what's going on? But it's a very tranquil experience. It's very small inside. A lot of people think, oh, it's like a 2-story building, or like, oh, do people live here? And no, it's mostly just tea rooms, and so for tea ceremony. And so we welcome people. We offer 2 kinds of tea ceremonies, and so one is seated cross-legged in the tea room on tatami mats, but with a 500-year-old art form, they actually have made a very revolutionary, well, it's about 200 years old, but it's table-style tea ceremony, and so we demonstrate that as well. And so people who have concerns because they have like a broken ankle, or they're in a wheelchair, or maybe they're bringing an elderly family member to tea, that table-style tea is very accessible because you're seated in a chair.
Thank you. I find everything you've talked about today just fascinating. And as I was learning about it, because again, I had a passing knowledge of Japan House before we decided we were able to get you on. And as I'm reading more and as I'm learning when your prep work and just listening to you today, it's a fascinating piece of culture that we have here on the campus. It's a fascinating opportunity. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I just wanted to say thank you because everything you've shared today has just been really insightful. And I think it's going to be something that as people learn about it, it's going to just grow that knowledge and grow that word of mouth more. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Yeah. And, for anyone listening, I just want to say, like, gardens are free. And even though, like, you might be stressed out and you're looking for nice things to do, just come out, just sit. Don't think about anything else. Don't worry about anything else, and just be. And so our gardens are meant for that. And we hope people find happiness there.
as we're talking about the gardens, if a student comes, they enjoy it, and maybe they want to get involved, or they want to help out, or they want to support Japan House somehow, is there anything in that area that students can kind of get connected with?
Absolutely. Never hesitate to reach out. We have gardening sessions on Friday mornings. And so, we tell students, if you just want something quiet to do and nothing hard, you can help us rake leaves, pick up sticks. And that's all we ask. And it really helps beautify the gardens. And everyone notices the difference that you make. And it's such a small act. And so we always welcome garden volunteers.
And it is amazing that the gardens are in an area that have two pretty, Kirby and Florida and Lincoln, two pretty well-traveled roads. But when you're in the garden, you feel like you're not anywhere near that. It's really quite fascinating and amazing how well you can separate. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming in and sharing on that today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
There are so many little hidden gems and things that people on our campus may or may not be as aware of, and Japan House is one of those that many people have a passing knowledge. They've heard about it, or maybe they visit the gardens, but they just didn't know how in depth Japan House is and all the resources and opportunities there. And so I really encourage you, if you're listening today and something has piqued your interest, reach out to them. We have the website in the bio. We have the contact and the resources in the bio. Reach out, ask questions, get involved, sign up for an event or a course or whatever it may be. But there really is a wealth of knowledge and opportunity here to connect with a culture, but also kind of connect with yourself through that culture and learn about so many things. So we encourage you to reach out in that. If you have any questions, you have any comments, you want to follow up on this episode, you're welcome to reach out to us here at Healthy Illini as well. We'd love to talk with you or get you in contact with someone who can help answer your questions. But thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we're here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.